May-December relationships aren't all that uncommon in society, though they do seem to happen in movies a little more. In this video, we're taking a look at the largest age gaps between two stars of a movie and telling you a bit about the films they starred in together. So stay tuned as Facts First presents movies with the biggest age gaps between leading couples. Harold and Maude, 52-year gap. There are some who call Harold and Maude the greatest romance story of the modern era. It's a story about young Harold Chasen, played by Bud Cort, who is obsessed with death. So much so he goes to funerals of strangers, acts out fake suicides, and even drives a hearse. At one funeral, he meets the eccentric Maude, played by Ruth Gordon. Despite having a massive age gap, Cort was 23 and Gordon was 75, the two characters have a similar hobby. And yet, personality-wise, they differ greatly. While Harold is dark and pessimistic about the world, Maude sees things with rose-colored glasses. And as is often the case, their opposite takes on the world make them best of friends. Over the course of their friendship, Maude teaches Harold a lot about life, including her love of art and culture. She even teaches him banjo. Eventually, their friendship turns into romance. We won't spoil the ending, but let's just say it's heart-wrenching and uplifting at the same time. Theirs is perhaps the ultimate May-December romance and is held up as the paragon for unlikely romances in films. The 1971 movie has had a cult following for years and was chosen to be in the National Film Registry. It was even ranked the 45th funniest movie of all time by AFI in 2000. Venus, 50-year gap. Director Roger Mitchell released the film Venus in 2006, starring screen legend Peter O'Toole. O'Toole was 74 at the time and passed away 7 years later. Acting opposite him was Jodie Whittaker, who was 24. Whittaker has gone on to great success in the industry, perhaps most notably as the 13th person to play the Doctor in the acclaimed series Doctor Who. O'Toole plays Maurice, a former actor who finds himself alone at the end of his life. He's fighting a losing battle to prostate cancer and doesn't have anyone in his life with whom to share his love of art. He meets and falls for his friend's grandniece, Jessie. The two strike up an odd relationship that, over the course of the movie, is shown to be a little manipulative. It seems Jessie is essentially using Maurice for things like presents and the use of his apartment to sleep with another man. Maurice, on the other hand, is open about his infatuation with Jessie, though at this point in his life he's impotent, so their relationship is physically limited no matter what. At one point, the two have a nasty fight and Maurice is accidentally injured, but he doesn't recall what happened and asked for Jessie to be by his side to nurse him back to health. It's a complex relationship between the two characters who have a huge age gap between them. O'Toole's performance in Venus garnered him his 8th nomination for Best Actor. The Quiet American, 49-year gap. The Quiet American stars Michael Caine and Do Thi Hai Yen. At the time of filming, the two were 69 and 20, respectively. That put their age gap at a hefty 49 years apart. The movie is a remake of a 1958 movie, and both movies were adapted from a best-selling novel from 1955 by Graham Greene. The Quiet American takes place in Vietnam at the culmination of the First Indochina War, which lasted from 1946 to 54. It's about a love triangle amongst an older man, Thomas Fowler, a slightly younger man, Alden Pyle, and a young woman named Phuong. In addition to Michael Caine and Do Thi Hai Yen, the movie also features Brendan Fraser as Alden Pyle. But in addition to being a love story, it's also a movie about American politics and involvement in Vietnam that were part of a build-up to the Vietnam War years later. Fowler is a reporter covering the Indochina War, while Pyle is a CIA operative assigned an operation in Vietnam to promote American interests. Along the way, Pyle attempts to steal Fowler's Vietnamese mistress, Phuong. The movie is a compelling mix of romantic intrigue set against an intense background of government and socio-political change. Another interesting note is that it debuted September 10, 2001. After tanking at the box office because of the attacks of September 11th, as well as being criticized for being unpatriotic, it was shelved for a year. It was then released at the Toronto Film Festival in September of 2002 to stellar reviews. The Big Lebowski, 45-year gap. The Big Lebowski is a slightly indefinable film in that it spans a few different genres, but this cult favorite has enjoyed classic status among modern-day movies regardless of how it's defined. Many see it as a crime drama that's also a noir film, but also a dark comedy. It stars Jeff Bridges as the Dude and has a stellar cast that includes legends like John Goodman, Steve Buscemi, Julianne Moore, and John Turturro. But it also includes a romance between two characters played by David Huddleston and Tara Reid. The two actors were 68 and 23 years old at the time of filming, making that age gap 45 years. The film is ultimately a story spawning from mistaken identity, since the main character is named Jeffrey Lebowski, as is the character played by Huddleston. Bridges Lebowski is referred to as the Dude, while Huddleston's character is referred to as the Big Lebowski. After the Dude is mistaken for the Big Lebowski by some goons who beat him up, he sets out on a mission to clear his name. The Big Lebowski informs the Dude that his wife, Bunny, has been kidnapped. He asks the Dude to act as drop-off man for a random handoff. Things go haywire, and the rest of the movie involves a bunch of madcap stories and bizarre characters whose stories often intersect. The film was written and directed by the Coen brothers, and they even admitted the story was intended to be a mystery that gets muddied by a lot of unimportant plot elements. It's a hilarious and quirky movie that really should be seen several times. Beginners. 43-year gap. Beginners is a lovely and poignant story about a man struggling to find love as he remembers the final year of his father's life. Ewan McGregor plays Hal, a man in a new relationship with a French woman, Anna, played by Melanie Laurent. In a series of flashbacks, Hal recollects the recent passing of his father and the final portion of his life. His father, played by Christopher Plummer, had spent the majority of his life married to Hal's mother, but after she died, Hal discovered that not only was his parents' marriage a platonic one, but that his father was gay. It was only after Hal's mother died that his father was able to come out of the closet and enjoy his last few years as an openly gay man. During those years, he struck up a relationship with a man named Andy, who is much younger than he is. Andy's played by Goran Vishnik. At the time of filming, he was 38, while Plummer was 81, making their age gap 43 years. Beginners is a charming and heartfelt movie that explores sexuality, grief, and self-identity. It won a slew of awards, including Best Feature at the Gotham Awards and a nomination for Best Film and Best Directing at the Independent Spirit Awards. Plummer was also regaled with awards, including a BAFTA, a Golden Globe, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and an Oscar for Best Actor. Poison Ivy, 42-year gap. Poison Ivy is an intense erotic thriller from 1992 starring Tom Skerritt, Sarah Gilbert, and Drew Barrymore. It follows the story of a young rich girl named Sylvie, played by Gilbert, who meets a girl from the streets and befriends her. But throughout the movie, that girl, Ivy, played by Barrymore, essentially cons her way into Sylvie's family. She seduces Sylvie's dad, played by Skerritt, and eventually murders her mom. She also tries to frame Sylvie for a car accident. It's a chaotic and dramatic movie, and the relationship between Skerritt and Barrymore drives the conflict throughout. At the time of filming, Skerritt was 59 and Barrymore was 17, which made for a 42-year age gap. And while it was selected for the Sundance Film Festival, it split audiences. The New York Times said that at the festival, moviegoers were either enraptured or insulted. Its overall critical reviews reflect that sentiment, as it has a 51 on Metacritic and a 41% on Rotten Tomatoes. Entertainment Weekly put Ivy as 6th on their collection of the top bad girls of all time. Whatever Works, 40-year gap. Whatever Works is a Woody Allen film where Larry David was given the task of playing the main character, usually portrayed by Allen himself. As such, David's character has many of the quirks and idiosyncratic views of the world, often displayed by Woody. He plays Boris, a downtrodden man with OCD tendencies who's retired from his job as a Columbia professor. He avoids people and is generally condescending. But one day a girl named Melody shows up at his doorstep. She's played by Evan Rachel Wood, and at the time of filming, she was 22, while Larry David was 62, making it a 40-year age gap. Over the course of the movie, they develop a romance. At one point, Melody's parents show up, revealing they thought she'd been kidnapped. The movie follows their relationship as they both change, and not always for the better. It was met with moderately good reviews and has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you see any of these movies? Did the age gap make it feel awkward to watch? Let us know in the comments section below.